So, good evening and welcome. Today is time for a special public-private coaching for our moderator xxIxx. And I'm Aarnimetsa from PokerImania.com. And we are going to today look for some micro-stakes spin and goes. And for the micro-stakes spin and goes, we are starting off with some of the hands that xxIxx has marked himself. And we'll look about what's going to be a good line on those. And then xxIxx has sent me something like 200 games, and I have pointed out a few hands on those, and we'll look through some of the hands that I have marked and what would be the easiest way for xxIxx to improve his game. So, are you there?
Yes, yes I am. Good evening, everyone.
So he's a road warrior right now, and we are wondering if there's a good enough internet in the hotel he's in. And it seems to be working alright.
Yes, the sound is clear and the voice and the stream is working well, so on my part everything's good.
So we can start. And first off, we are starting with the marked hands. So the first hand is going to be a limp, another limp, and you are here with pocket fives.
Yes.
What are you thinking about this situation?
Well, I don't know. It's I could check this, but I think because let me explain a little. Most of the hands I posted here are three-way hands, and I also talked with Arne beforehand that the three-way hands are most difficult for me because I've been playing six max hypers and also heads up sit and goes, and I'm kind of lost with these. I think I've just shoved this like a hyper turbo heads up hand here.
I think that's going to be pretty much the optimal way to go, and I don't think that you are going to be that far out in these games if you are for three-handed, if you are thinking about if you get it unopened to the small blind, you can take it as almost as it would be button in heads up. And also the small blind to big blind ranges, they are going to be really close together. So that's perhaps something that's going to be interesting for today, because what I started off by saying to xxIxx that we are probably not going to cover too many of button hands three-handed. That's the only different. I think it's the only thing that is markedly different from heads-up hypers. So that's something that we are not thinking about. And of course there will be some three-handed play that's going to be from small blind and big blind. That's going to be markedly different because the button is included in those hands.
Yeah.
But generally I think that these games are probably easiest to learn for someone that's good in heads up. And for them it's mostly about adjusting to the player tendencies, as the average player in these games is going to be quite different than an average heads up sit and go opponent. And also for the three-handed game I think that there are some opportunities to screw yourself. So
because my view on these small pocket pairs especially is that I pretty much don't want to see the flop, because these limpers, they can have lots of ace trash and any Broadway picture card trash that easily hits the board, and I'd rather just shove it in and have them make the mistake instead. I don't know if that's the optimal way to do it, but that's how I view these hands here.
I think like in this situation when there has been two limpers and you are with a small pocket pair like from deuces to sixes, I think it's going to be optimal to shove. perhaps even sevens, because this is a hand that plays pre-flop, it plays really well, but the more you are going post-flop, it's going to be increasingly hard to play, and especially that you are not in position. Yeah. And I'd also say that the stack size, the effective stack size is not that big, so there is already 60 chips in the pot, so you can like increase your stack size by almost 10% if you are shoving and winning here.
Yeah, and also I don't know, 3-betting here with not shoving. I don't see it. It's gonna be mostly troubles post flop afterwards.
I have tried to do it the both ways with small pocket pairs, and in general I think that if you are having limpers or raisers with small pocket pairs, you are probably playing it better if you just shove it in, and I think you did exactly that, so I think that's pretty much played to perfection. And hitting the runner quads is also nice, and in this hand we can also see that our opponents can make some pretty horrible mistakes in these games.
Yeah, I mean this is the reason I tend to shove this, because you get called by very, very odd just suited cards. I don't know which coaching site has told everyone that suited cards are the nuts pre-flop, because I get tons of calls on any suited cards.
I don't know, I think that they are just pretty, but like in general I believe that when we are three-handed there are two limpers. I like the second guy limping that's going to have the worst position. I'm thinking that they are pretty rarely having a really good hand in here, so I'm thinking that when they call you are pretty much always going to be good. Yeah. And Jula's process that would raise sixes plus smaller and shove deuces to fives. Yeah, I think from sixes and sevens it's hard to draw the line, but it's going to be around there. I think as well that what's going to be better to raise small. And with something like sixes or sevens, we can hit or like not that we can hit, but the hand is going to be most likely it's going to be a bit better. With deuces to fives, it's almost always a under pair. With something like sevens or eights, we are quite often having a mid pair, and we are having a slightly better showdown equity.
Yeah.
And also it's going to be something like eights or nines, it's going to be when we are raising, we are going to get it in with wider ranges against our opponents. And let's go to the next hand. I think that these are going to be pretty. And you are the first one to act. And there are two players, and like I'm going to think about always your players as randoms, as the player pool in $1 spin and goes should be really wide, and you are practically always playing against randoms.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking about here when you are playing against two randoms? This is the first hand of the tournament.
Yeah, I don't. You just showed what happened, but.
Yeah, but now I'm asking you what you should do.
Yeah, that's not the. I would just min raise like normally. Normally, I don't know why I shoved. It's like you said. It's most likely the first hand in the game.
And most likely against two randoms, and Pocket 8 it's going to be clear that it's going to play better as a min raise, and you are like if you shove, you are getting more folds and you are getting some really weird calls. But I think that players are going to play tighter against you, and if you are min raising, then there are the maniacs that are thinking that like if this is a 2x multiplier game, they are going to think that oh this is worth nothing, so I'm going to shove this noob away with my 10-3 suited. So you are going to get it in with a lot against a lot of hands that you are having better equity if you just min raise it here instead of shove. So, but we are probably going to see an interesting hand here, as this was a marked hand. We hit the straight on the river and 10 deuce. But even though we are getting some weird calls like this, I'm thinking that we are getting more weird 3-bets if we are min-raising then.
But this is because, like we discussed shortly beforehand, I don't know why I did this here, but it could be on a. I'm not sure. I sent you. This is my hand. So I don't know which games they are from, but I have been also trying to 8-table these on stacks, and sometimes I just basically just shove hands like these on the games like that. But this was badly played. But luckily there are guys like these on these games. And even though I suck out on the on the river.
And there is going to be another question that I think like these games are going to be. These games in general, they are going to be really quick as these are hypers.
Yeah.
So everything happens really quickly, and if you are playing like 8 tables of these, I think it's going to be like equivalent of playing 20 tables of 9 max hypers or like 30 tables of MTT sit and goes.
Last year I was able to 15 table 6 max hypers with a positive ROI, but also that was the time when I was running good, so I don't know.
I'm thinking that if you are playing 8 tables, it's probably going to be too much. So
yeah, it was a pure test. I tried few sessions like that, but I'm back to 4 tabling.
And there's Impact Point says that would you shove the Pocket 5s in 100x multiplier? I should probably do a video about the 1000x multipliers I have hit, because I have had those on video, but as Eulos Pro said, the multiplier shouldn't affect how we play. We should do the best equity decisions anyway, and all of these games, they are all about chips, so we are doing everything we can to win as many chips as we can. And I think the villains are not going to change their game that much. Of course, I don't have a good enough data on how villains play in like 25x games, as I have played so few of those. But in general, people are a bit more tight the larger the multiplier. I saw that in... Actually, it was a blog here that asked like how people are playing in different. So I made a custom report on Poker Tracker 4 to see how people are playing with the different multipliers.
Yeah, that was a very informative post too.
And Deia has a really important point that if you are thinking it this way, that if people are even more tight, shouldn't you then shove wider? Yep. And let's go to the next hand. So we are now on the big blind with Ace King suited. What do we do here?
I'm with two guys and 100 chips on the pot. It's just my hyper head that shoves his hand. Just because I can get nice amount of 80 chips or then flip with a very good hand.
I think this is going to be a really profitable shove. And we might be talking about, should you, with hand as good as this, could we go for a small 3-bet as value? But I think that in these games that people are going to be calling the large 3-bets also too wide, so these good hands are going to get also good value to be shoved in these spots, especially when there's a raise and a call.
Yeah.
So I think shoving here is okay, and I think in this situation you are a bit bummed that you didn't get a call, but you are getting a call with weaker aces.
Yeah, but with that amount of chips and then 3-betting that even a small size, you could, in these games at least, you could get 2 callers and then be on a nasty looking flop. So
And
then the pot could be as big that it's just gonna be a shove hand in the flop anyways.
And Julas Pro Ace King shove obviously wins money, but 3-betting smaller wins more. I would agree with you if we are thinking about, or if we are against one player here. So if there is like one opener and no callers in between, then I'm thinking that we are going to get more money in with a small 3-bet. But I think that when there is a raiser and a caller, both players are random and they are from the random player pool at the $1 spin and goes. I'm thinking that shoving probably makes more money than 3-betting smaller.
Yeah, that's also the question would be what size of a 3-bet you put in when you have 100 chips to not to make it that you end up 3-way on the flop, most likely not hitting it.
That's also like when Baba Booey says that Jacks Plus would be a 3-bet to 120 to 150. Like somewhere around 120 and 150 would be the small 3-bet sizing, and I'm thinking that in this situation and with the ranges that I'm having in my mind that our opponents will call us, I'm thinking that somewhere on queens it's going to get better to 3-bet small, as it's going to be increasingly a possibility that we are getting called.
Yeah. So yeah, like one of the things here is that I want to get knowledge for this coaching is that how do these like quite aggressively played hands, like in the long run they do make money, but would there be any more optimal lines and just small, because it's all about chips and that matters. So
but it's something that's going to be pretty easy to check, like
yeah,
if you are interested in, like, it's going to be harder for these situations that there's a min raise and a call, because that situation will be a rarer one. But you can, like, if you are playing what you have said, like, I think about 100 games, and I think 100 games a day would be about 2,500 hands, so like play 10,000 hands, so play a week's games and shove in the situation, play a week's hands and 3-bet small, and then you can compare with the hands on.
Good. Yeah, good point.
And Julas Pro, it's not like shove will win way more money than a small 3-bet, if any. Am I right? I think that shove will make more money. And good evening to Marcus Y. Y here. So we are having the whole moderating team is in today.
Yeah.
And when Julas Pro said that he doesn't like the point in having the guy flat calling instead of having just one opponent, I'm thinking that it's going to be quite huge, or the difference is going to be quite sizable. Like how much can you win for just going all in preflop? So how much there is dead money in the pot, and also when you are getting called by stupid, it increases it doesn't double the possibility of getting called by stupid, but it like increases them about 60 to 70%. But I don't think like it's going to be even in higher games, I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference. It's also, I think also it's going to be a bit interesting when some of the players in the higher games, if you're just shoving with these stack sizes, they are instantly starting to think that it's going to be a low to medium pocket pair, and then they are calling with something like Jack 10 suited, and that's going to be pretty crappy for them. And I don't think that we are going to get a call wider versus shove than versus smaller 3-bet. But I'm thinking that with a shove we are getting more money in, and on average we are getting more money in as we are shoving than if we would be 3-betting small. Because of if we are 3-betting small here, we are making our opponent to make a like 80 to 100 chip decision, and if we are shoving here, they are making a 400 chip decision.
Yeah.
And pocket 8s. And here we are having like 8 big blind stack against us. What do we do here?
Yeah, I would min raise and hope a shove from the big blind here.
I'm thinking that this is going to be pretty often best played as a shove. I don't think that inducing is going to. I don't think induce is going to be better in here because the stack size gets quite low, and our hand, even though it's a strong pre-flop hand, it's going to be quite vulnerable. And hello, Schifosis. And Eulost Pro, perhaps we'll disagree on this. So I'd say I have put my point out, but it's really nice to see discussion. And I might be wrong there with the Ace King suited.
Yeah, but with this hand, my question is, I know what happens here. I shove this hand, but my main point on this hand was that would inducing actually make this guy, because he's random, I don't. The scary part is that he calls with some Broadway hand or something, but those could also just shove it, and so I was just thinking, as a shove, yes, I most likely get the chips and get it in with a good hand if he calls and be ahead, but in most of the cases, but then again, if I recall correctly, this was something like a xxIxx game, and then the fold is more obvious with these guys. They play with their last chips on the xxIxx games. It seems. I have the feeling that there's a lot more so-called scared chips on the game when the multiplier is higher than 2.
Yeah. I think like in this situation, it's going to be like pocket 8 is going to be pretty much one of those perfect hands to shove that.
Okay.
Something like pocket jacks could be that there might be some inducing value. And there also might be that if guys are playing scared, the bottom of our range could also be better as a limp or as a min raise.
Yeah.
Raise in this situation. But I'm thinking like the middle strength hands like pocket 8s, I'm thinking that they are going to play better as shoves.
Yeah, okay.
So pretty much always.
Well played, me. Good job, but that was the initial question. That was this shove a good one, or would it be better to just induce?
Eulos Pro asked for a replay. This is a pretty simple hand. We are with 8 big blind effective stack size in here, and we are thinking if this is a better induce or shove. And I think in general that the lower stakes the games are going to be, the less we are going to see 3-betting, and we are going to see more flatting, especially from the random guys. And flatting is something that the guys are having equity with even their crappy hands that they are calling. And if we are shoving here, we are denying them their equity share. And right now we are going to switch the database to the hands that I'm going to. I have marked, so let's go for the next database. And there are quite a few marked hands here. I like to look through one or two of your whole games and mark some hands that I think that are going to be good to discuss there. And then there's going to be a pretty good part of this session is going to be about folding in the blinds.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, like majority of these hands that we are seeing here are going to be folds.
Yeah.
How many hands? I think we are having like 8 hands that are not folds, and then we are having about 16 hands that are folds. So let's start off first by the raises. Or I'm seeing that if I'm trying to find the hands that are from the same game, so we can have a complete story about the hands. Now let's go for the hands that are not folds first, and then let's go for the folds.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be interesting in a way because the folds are probably going to be the most important part.
Yeah.
So actually, when the folds are going to be the most important part, let's go for the folds first. It's going to be smarter to have the... Let's start with the heads up small blind. No, let's start with the 3-handed small blind hands. There are going to be a few of those. So in these hands, we are going to look through some of these hands, and like in general, I think the opponents in these games, that when I look through some of your opponents in here, I see that the opponents are folding a lot of their blinds to steals in general. So that's something that I would like to take advantage of by doing a lot of min raising and letting them fold their hands. Because the chips you are winning in a non-showdown way are going to be pretty much variance free. So I'm going to go for a pretty wide opening range in these situations.
Marcus is asking for the HUD.
Okay. Sorry about that. Adding it right now. Let's try to get the HUD to the bottom of the screen so it doesn't collide with the other stuff. So, like in this situation, we are having a top 50 to 60% hand, and it's going to be a hand that's going to play pretty well post flop. So I'm thinking that this hand is going to be a profitable limp or min raise. I'm thinking that it probably is a profitable shove as well. So And if it's a profitable shove, then I'm thinking that folding it is probably going to be a mistake.
Yeah.
So, and I'm seeing a lot of these situations. Like, I'm thinking that this hand, if it's just played, it's going to be plus EV. Like, I think every other button than the fold button is going to be better in general. And when I'm seeing a player that's having folding a big blind to steal about 75, and then I'm seeing that rest of the hands are going to be 3-bet. I like to abuse those guys with a lot of min raises, because then I can go with a really polarized range and not think that much about post-flop playability. Because if the guys are going to just 3-bet or fold, they are making it pretty easy for me to abuse them.
Yeah. So, I don't. I don't know why I folded this hand, but say it would be a heads-up hand. I would min raise that, or even shove, because it should be in the shoving range about there. So I don't know. I'm not sure if all these trouble things come from the fact that I played the xxIxx and then the heads up, and somehow I just can't. I'm kind of lost on the three-way.
And it's
situations.
In a way, it's going to be interesting, because the three-way in about every other tournament structure, the tournament poker, three-way poker is going to be about with the same structure. And in here, when it's going to be winner takes it all, then we can induce a lot more, because there is no ICM pressure that opponents can inflict on us with the bigger stacks.
Yeah.
And we can also, in general, we can play more hands.
Yeah.
And there's a little less concern to go for pot control lines. And we can be a bit greedier in these situations than in a xxIxx hyper. And it has been I think it has been probably the hardest thing for me to unlearn ICM for these situations.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in this situation, if you're just thinking when this guy folds and then playing from a heads up perspective, and probably just shoving a bit more of those profitable shoves. And as Julospro said, that heads up Nash ranges are exactly same as blind versus blind, no antes, no ICM ranges. It's correct. So, and it's going to be that shoving is a bit better when we are three-handed blind versus blind, because in heads up, when we are on the small blind, we are on the button, and we are last to act on the flop, and it gives a bit more extra equity to take the hand to the flop. And when we are from small blind against big blind, it makes a bit more sense to get more pots here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we agree with Julospro that shove a bit more, because we are out of position now. But I'm still thinking that it's going to be... I think it's going to be against this kind of opponent. It's going to be really good as a min raise.
The great thing about this is that when you asked for the tournaments to be posted to you, I randomly picked days, and then I don't have a clue, because I've had very good days where I've been playing very aggressively, and then I've had pretty nasty. I think it was a 36 buy-in, pretty much straight downswings, and that has obviously affected my game. Even though this is I'm overall to these games, but I still get anxious when the shit hits the fan. So even though it's $1 game, and it's just a practicing phase for the bigger games, but that, because I don't have a clue, I can see that I make clear mistakes, and this could be one of the bad days or not. So it's good to find that even though if it's not or if it is a bad day, that I make these kind of terrible folds here.
And I don't think it's about the day, because
Yeah.
if I'm correct in here, we can see it's going to be, or it's from 2 days, and they are going. Most of these are from 9th of February, so it might be
Okay.
that it has been a. It might be that it has been a bad day, but I believe that I have seen pretty much the averages on the days, and so.
Yeah.
And that's going to be something to look through, that what you can play from the, and this is, I think this is second or third. This is actually third hand in a tournament.
Yeah.
So what should we do here?
Oh, let me see. I still have the. Let's see if I update the.
It's going to
browser.
be king 4 off.
Okay.
King 4 off.
And you must
Okay, I
proceed.
had to. Sorry about the echo. I had to refresh the browser, and I heard the voice all the time, but now I can see the picture. King 4 off. Let's see. This again should be a min raise, I think.
This is one of those hands that it easily should be a min raise.
Yeah.
And I think that if we are for an unknown opponent, if we are folding like any king here, it's probably going to be a hand that we'll make money with if we just play it.
Yeah.
And you lost said that small blind steal and fold blind versus blind stats are actually almost mandatory for these games. And I tend to agree. And also I think that also raising from the button, there are going to be huge differences in even regs. Like I have seen in $30 games, I have seen regs that are playing 15% of their hands from the button. And then there are regs that are playing 70%. So it's going to be a huge difference on how to adjust against a different kind of player. And I'm also thinking that the difference between how often a player folds their big blind against button open and small blind open, I don't think that there is that much of a difference. So I don't think that a special blind versus blind stat is going to be that useful. And we are going to have the next hand, and it's going to be from the same game, pretty much.
Yeah.
And we are having about exactly the same hand. What should we do here?
Again, min raise.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we can min raise in here, even though our opponent has folded exactly 0 times, but you haven't put a lot of pressure on him either.
Yeah.
Like, if it's 15 hands, and he has been facing 1 steal, then it's going to be a bit like, if he's facing 1 steal, what kind of a crap have you had during the tournament? So,
yeah.
But those are like, I'm thinking that an opponent pretty much just gets money if you are folding kings here. And this one I remember that this was from a tournament that I was looking through. And this is going to be probably the closest one of these. What do you think here?
Let's see. Not many hands. 9 hands into the game, and he has called every 3rd hand. So min raise here.
I think it's going to be close between min raising and limping, and I'm thinking limping would be a bit better in here.
Okay.
Here. And Julas Pro asked that what sizing do I use for a blind versus blind at the first blind level? I do just min raise from the beginning, as I see that there are a lot of opponents that are folding just min raises. So I don't see a point of going higher than a min raise. And especially that we are 25 big blinds deep, so when we are just min raising, if we are going to post flop, we are going to have more space to do moves and trying to steal the pot later on.
Yeah. So I fold here, but you talked about limping. What if that hand would have been suited gapper?
I think with suited gapper, min raising gets a bit better. If we are having an opponent that flats practically every hand, and when we are having just 9 hands on our opponent, it's going to be really. Then I'm not going to think about their stats that much. Yeah. I'm going to think that how I'm going to play in this situation versus an unknown.
Yeah.
Bababoo, yeah, opponent folds only 33%, but it's like 1 in 3, so I wouldn't say that it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that close. Or even because it's just 3 hands, I don't think that we should put that much faith in that number.
Yeah.
And we are having Queen 4 suited. You know the drill.
Yeah.
Min raise. And like this 7-5 off, this is going to be on the edge of. This is like, I think, bottom 25% hand, pretty much. Yeah. When we are taking post-flop playability into account, so this is one of those hands that we are thinking about. I think it's going to be pretty close to any 2 cards that we can play profitably in an unopened pot with these stack depths.
Yeah.
But then it's going to be a question of how we are going to play it. And in this situation, if our villain is passive, it's going to be a bit better to limp, because then we are going to have a smaller pot that we can take down later on.
Yeah.
I would like to know that my opponent is passive, but also I think that it's going to be exploiting the general opponent by limping a lot of the bad hands that are not quite good enough to min raise, or are going to be minimally profitable to min raise. I'm thinking that players in general are going to play pretty bad against limps in these situations. And I think there are going to be like 2 schools of guys. There are going to be guys that are getting like, you don't limp my blinds, and they are going to shove over you with something like 30 big blinds. Yeah. And then there are other guys that are going to, but he limps, it's going to be free. And they are just going to check behind even their good hands.
Yeah.
And there's going to be quite little middle ground that someone would raise smaller. So that's why I think that limping is going to be pretty profitable with some of these. And as I said, this is going to be this is here for illustrative purposes. Like, I think all of the other hands, like Queen 4 suited, King 4 off, King 3 off, those are going to be clear that we need. I think that we are making money if we are opening those.
Yeah.
I don't think that we need to discuss that much. But this is more like we would need to, pretty much by default, we are making money if we are raising the weak hands. But how weak can we go? And I think like 7-5 off is going to be profitable still. If we know that opponent is aggressive, do we fold? It depends. If we are seeing that our opponent is a 3-betting machine, we could fold, but also some of those 3-betting machines, I like to limp some of those hands against the 3-betting machines to see like how they are going to react if I'm limping here. And for these decisions, folding blind versus blind is actually a pretty good stat, since we obviously prefer our opponent not to realize his equity, but with no stats it can't be too bad to try it out. And as I said earlier, I'm thinking that a special stat for just blind versus blind, I'm thinking that they are going to be quite close together. We can remind me at the end of this session that let's look through how much our opponents or how much the population differs when they are facing a raise from button and when they are raising a raise from small blind. Because I'm saying that there is not going to be a whole lot of difference, and we are getting wider range of situations and we are getting bigger sample size by including both of those, incorporating both of those into a same number. And we are having Queen 7 off. What are we going to do here?
Obviously min raise.
Yep. And this wasn't something that was hard to look through. Like, there are a lot of these hands that we can see that you are folding a profitable opening possibility.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that you are playing about half of your hands when this unknown player is folding. And you are practically never limping, and when you are playing about half of your hands, it's going to be really hard to make a profit from the small blind. Yeah. Like, I think that you can make profit from, like, there's 5 different positions. 3-handed button, that's going to be the position you are easily making the most money from. Yeah. Then there's going to be the 3-handed small blind, that is the hardest position to make money, but it's possible to have positive big blinds per 100 from small blind 3-handed. And then there's going to be 3-handed big blind. I think it's going to be the second hardest to make money from. And then there's going to be the big blind heads up. That's going to be the medium position. That it's going to be one of those positions most knowledgeable players should make money from. And then there's going to be the small blind from heads up. That's going to be probably the second most profitable situation you can be in.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the graph that I posted that tells the story. I'm losing equity in these games because I'm giving away chips this way too much. But yeah. After I watched your coaching videos and turned up aggression, the red line has been going up since then.
I think it's going to be. I think I'm a lot more aggressive now than when I made the first videos. Yeah. But like in this situation, if you are playing half of your hands, yeah, like. All the hands that you are folding, you are losing half a big blind per hand, so 50 big blinds per 100 hands. Yeah. So when you are starting with those hands that you are playing, like you are on that point, you are losing already 25 big blinds when you are folding half of your hands. Yeah. And when you are losing 25 big blinds per 100, you need to play those 50% of hands you play pretty well to show any kind of profit.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to be probably what's going to be the most important thing, is going to be more aggressive from small blind against big blind. Yeah. Even in 3-handed.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, like Eulos Pro said, it's pretty much heads up game after the button folds.
Yeah, it's going
So
to
I
be
have to adjust to pretty much straight up heads up ranges there, and kind of forget about the guy who's sitting there with his chips not included in the play.
And it's also going to be that when the play is getting bogged down and you are getting to a small stack size three-handed, then you can just go for the Nash push fold ranges.
Yeah.
When you are something like 6 big blinds deep or you are losing a large spot and your opponent in the big blind you are having effectively 6 big blinds, you can just shove. And that's why the Nash heads up ranges are going to be pretty good to have on hand. It's going to be a pretty easy way to improve, and those are also going to be like especially the pushing part. If it's going to be profitable to push even against a perfect caller from small blind against a big blind, you shouldn't fold that kind of a hand.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's always going to be a mistake if you're folding a hand that would be profitable to be played as a push.
Yeah, I think I've been on these three-way hands. I think too much about the guy who has still chips and is not included.
But when he's
on
not,
the hand, so.
But when he's not included, like, I'm probably going to get a lot of shit about this, but there has been like really good players that have been making spin and go videos, and then they are like from 10 minutes on they are saying that sometimes these are going to be stupid games when there are two players that are just flipping for the first hand, and then you are having 2-1.
Yeah.
2-1 situation heads up that you are going to win pretty rarely. But it doesn't matter. This is going to be all about chips, and if both of other guys flip, it doesn't matter. You haven't lost any equity there. You are just going to play then more heads up than three-handed, and it doesn't matter at all, this third guy, how large his stack is. It's going to matter what you are having effectively here that you are going to play with. And actually, when you said that let's actually have also the heads up two-handed.
Yeah.
This was actually when you asked me, this first hand is actually going to be the hand that I had open when you asked me what do I have in store for you today.
Yeah.
Ace-4 off when we are heads up. We are having an opponent that we have played 42 hands of heads up, and he has folded almost every time against a steal.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. We should always min raise here.
Yeah. That's very odd. Don't know what's going.
This is also, we are 20 big blinds deep effectively. King-6 off, min raise.
Yeah.
And these are like heads up hands, so I'm thinking that if you're playing too many hands and you have played heads up before, I'm thinking that these are hands that you just pretty much need to open.
Yeah.
And this is going to be one of those hands that this was one from the one tournament that I looked through completely. And even this hand, I'm thinking that you hadn't limped in the heads up a single time, and this could be a good hand to limp and try to see how your opponent adjusts.
Yeah.
And Ulas Pro said that.
Yeah, carry on.
Ulas Pro said on the stream or on the chat that good advice for xxIxx would be don't fold button in heads up with more than 10 big blinds.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a pretty good general guideline. And especially in these games that the worse the opponents play, the more there is going to be value for you to play against them.
Yeah. I think what I have to do after this is drop the tables down to 2, because especially that 4-3 hand could be that I have a situation going on other tables or playing post flop on 1 or 2 tables, and then I see a pretty crappy hand and just fold it. So I have to drop down tables if I'm folding hands like these on heads up.
But it's going to be like the 4-3 suited or the 7-5 off. Those are going to be hands that are pretty close to break even. If you are having too much of a hurry, it wouldn't be a problem. But I'm thinking like something like King 8 off. That's going to be actually a great hand. It's going to be a really playable hand, and it's going to be an above average hand against the complete random range that our opponent has in here. So folding these, it's going to be the problem, not the 7-5s or 4-3 suited. But those are going to be an example on how low can we go.
Yeah.
And this is something that you have probably missed your opponent's stack size completely. Yes. I just had to include this.
Here, have.
And this is not like that you are even having a bad hand. Like if you are having 50/100 blinds, I just don't. If you are having an unopened pot and 50 to 100 stack sizes, you are never folding Queen 9 off.
2 big blinds is any 2.
Yeah, and actually even because it's going to be maximum of 7.5 big blind stack depth, so you're practically never folding with 50 to 100 blinds. You should practically never fold Queen 9 off.
Yeah.
But so this is not only a three-handed problem from the small blind. This is going to also be a heads-up problem. And looks like some of these hands.
It's just all babbling, but I think I play way too many tables. Even the 4 tables is too much when I'm misplaying hands like this, standard opening hands.
Yeah, and this is going to be something that you'll need to focus on, that you are not missing these spots. And Marcus Y says that looks like some of these hands are just missed spots. Yeah, it's going to be like some of these hands are just missed spots, but then we can go and build for a filter for like pre-flop folds. We are doing an any fold, and add also that our opportunity would be to open the pot from small blind. And then we can also look like the whole cards that we are having here. Even though there are now raise folds in here, I should actually have a fold as first action. But we can see that like there are good hands we can see pretty much in the list if we are arranging by the... So I don't think that all of these can be just missed spots.
Yeah.
And like 9-8 off, it's going to be a hand that plays pretty well as well.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my point in here, and that's only heads up. There are going practically we can see even more hands and even better hands. We can see on the three-handed. So
yeah.
And if I would have seen something like 5 of these hands, we could go for something, go and do something else, look for something else. But when it's going to be probably that like any king of these would be, I would say already that it would be an easy open for me.
Yeah.
Especially when there's only one player behind you and they are going to fold pretty often.
Yeah.
And this is going to be pretty much the half of the situation was to be like how wide can we open from the small blind if we are against only the big blind. And I'd say that we can open pretty dirty wide.
Yeah.
I like the meaning dirty in there because we can get a lot of stuff out of our opponent. Then there's going to be the big blind, and it's going to be pretty much the same in reverse. That if we are going for, let's go for a replayer here. Now we are having only one heads up hand, and that's going to be from the one one tournament only. It's going to be interesting. Our opponent shoves. We are with the king-jack off. And to get a bit of more context, I think for the last 6 hands in the heads-up, you had been just... He has been shoving, you have been folding, you have been shoving, he has been folding. And I think this is going to be like if your opponent shoves the 3rd time in a row, and you are having the king-jack off, you need to call these situations.
Yeah.
And I think it was like this guy lost a large spot to you, and after that he shoved like the next 3 hands at least. And this is probably the 3rd one and the one that you are having the best hand to call with. And this is in a way this is going to be good because you should have a Nash range, and if you are like this is going to be a plus EV for 20 big blinds at least. And if you are having less than 1.5 times, I'm thinking that even with opponents that are not shoving wide enough, like if we are having 12 big blinds here and we could call for less than 18 big blinds, I find it to be really rarely that we are against an opponent that would shove so tightly that we shouldn't call the 12 big blind shove. Especially as usually when the opponents are shoving for over 10 big blinds, the range is going to be capped and there's not going to be like pocket queens plus hands.
Yeah.
And even some ace kings are going to be discounted. That was an easy hand. And of course the exact same applies that when Julas Pro said when we looked from the small blind against big blind, the Nash calculations, they work. It's going to be the same when we are on the big blind and against the small blind. If the small blind shoves, we can go for Nash when we are really, really short. And thanks for your comments, Julas Pro. Have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you for participating.
So we are having here, it's going to be a bit of a nice way to see that we are having ace of diamonds and some small club with it.
Yeah. Standard hand.
Standard hand to look through. And this is going to be the first one that's going to be... So we are having an opponent that shoves with 5 big blinds. We are having the large stack on the table calling him. And we are here with ace-7 off. And we are having about 8 big blinds. What do we do here? What do you think that our opponent's ranges would be in this situation?
Well, the guy shoving 150 is just shoving most likely quite widely, and this Marisha guy is just calling because he can, and then I'm troubled here, and but I see a large amount of chips I could suck out.
I'm thinking in this situation that you are having quite a sizable amount of your stack already in the pot.
Yeah.
And this guy is probably going to be shoving here pretty desperately because he's going to have a small stack size and he's going to have the big blind next.
Yeah.
And this guy seems to be a loose passive player that's probably calling a lot, and this is not only a trap. And I'm thinking that this, as Bababui said on the chat, I would say easy push. That's going to be my opinion as well, because I'm thinking like this is going to be about 50 to 70% ish range, and this is going to be 25 to 40% range. And the ace-7 off plays pretty well against ranges as wide as those.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking a fold is going to be a huge mistake in general. We can see the hands. Queen 8 off. It's going to be like top 50% hands. So my idea of her having, or her or him, it's going to be weird as a Finn. So I'm thinking that it's going to be like top 50% range, closer than 25 to 40%. And when I said that 75 to 50 to 75%, and he's having like the bottom 80% hand, or like the bottom 20% hand, so he's going to be even wider than that. I thought that my idea was going to be pretty wide, and then both of these guys show up with hands that are even crappier, so then ace 7 off is going to be really profitable.
Yeah.
And we can actually look this on Hold'em Resources calculator on what would be the Nash range in here, and I think like we can call pretty much with any ace in this situation. Even if everybody plays perfectly. Let's go for a satellite structure with only winner takes it all. And Bababui said that small blind should push there. It doesn't matter. It's like 80 chips. 80 chips in there. And it's going to be like if opponent first shoves with about 45%, which I think is going to be less than optimal. The guy should call with, or the guy in the middle should call with about 30%, and the ace 7 off would be on the middle. And we have seen that our opponents are going way wider than that. I'm going about the middle of the range that I first thought about. So about 32, 60. It's going to be smack in the middle. And when we are going through it, it's going to be that pretty much any ace would be callable in this situation. Something like king 10 off, queen 9 suited. Yeah. And in here it starts to also be that the suited hands that are connected are getting extra equity because they are playing a lot better than like offsuit small aces are playing in three-way pots.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a side note. It's a satellite structure that we use on Hold'em Resources.
It's just the first structure that is going to be the satellite structure with one winner, because then it's going to be the winner takes it all.
Okay, yeah.
So we could use any.
I haven't put through any of these hands because I wanted to make the mistakes and and have them shown to me, and then start working more on the tools now that everything is getting revealed, and I can start fixing things.
And I think like the future game simulation might help you somewhat. So it's going to be, it might be a bit better than the chip EV in big blinds that you can also use for these games. But I think the future game simulation, when it takes the value of your position, even if there is no ICM, it's going to be different. That are you in the small blind or are you in the button when? So there's going to be a slight valuation difference.
Okay.
Like if you are on the button, you should be a bit more active than just for chips, because on the next hand you are being on the big blind, and when you are on the big blind, it's going to be the hand that you are likely, or it's going to be the position you're likely losing some chips.
Yeah.
And in here, we got an absolutely unknown opponent for the first hand in a spin and go, and we are facing a min race.
Just call.
And I think this would be one of those situations to start thinking more about ranges in here. If we are having like an unknown small blind that's raising, and I'd say like the unknown small blind would raise somewhere around 40% percentage range. What kind of range could we play on the big blind against the 40%-ish range?
well, obviously all pretty much all aces at least, and then kings and the broadways and then suited connectors, and obviously pocket pairs and quite widely, really, just like in heads up.
Just like in heads up, and in this situation we are like getting 25% pot odds. We don't need to realize a lot of equity, and actually against the general opponent I think that we can play, against the min race we could play pretty much any 2 cards.
Yeah.
And most of those would be calls, because shoving in this situation isn't going to be profitable with Actually, it's going to be profitable probably with a pretty wide range, but then we are going to lose some of the equity that we could get like, if we flat.
So like shoving with ace 8 plus should be at least profitable.
I think any ace is going to be a profitable shove.
Okay.
And for something like small suited ace we could shove here. And like small pocket pairs we could shove here.
Yeah.
And so we can shove those hands that we are getting good pre-flop equity, but we are not getting that much post-flop equity. And like small aces, we could discuss that should we shove or should we fold. So this is going to be... And something like, if you are having like queen 10 suited, it's going to be profitable to shove, but it's also playing really well. So that's going to be a really good call, and also most of the weaker hands are going to be pretty good calls.
Like Baba Booey, you say on the chat that surely we're not calling pocket pairs. We had I'm not sure if you were in the first minutes of the coaching, but I had hands with small pocket pairs that I shoved on situations like this, and we found them to be the correct decision. So thank you for pointing out we're not calling those hands, we're shoving those hands.
Yeah, we are... In this situation, we should be having pretty much 4 ranges. It depends, it depends on the opponent. If the opponent is pretty needy, we are having a fold range here. If the opponent is... I think for every opponent we should have at least 3 different ranges, and the fold range would be pretty much the first range to go.
Yeah.
But we should have like a small 3-betting range that I think it can be pretty exploitable, and we can have there some hands that are... We can have it pretty polarized, that it would have really good hands, and it would also have some hands that are playing pretty badly post-flop. Post-flop that we wanna get the pot down, and then we would have a shove range, which would have some of those hands that are like ace. No, I think like pocket 5s and smaller, also something like ace 4. I think even pocket 6s are going to be better as shoves here.
Yeah.
And then we are going to have a call range, and our call range should be pretty wide in this situation.
Yeah, just like normal heads up. It's a brain fart to fold here.
Yeah, and a hand like ace 4, we can discuss on what range does it be included in, but for sure it shouldn't be included in...
Fold range.
Yeah, and actually we can have a wider calling range than in general heads up when we are 3-handed. Because we are, our hands are going to play better against our opponents because we are going to be in position after the flop.
Yeah.
So when we are going to be in position after the flop, it's going to be, we are going to get better equity to call many hands that we might 3-bet in a heads-up situation, because we don't want to play them out of position.
And in general, in my opinion, the GP is shoving hands like ace 4 suited on these situations.
And I think this is going to be like a 11th hand of a tournament. and it's going to be pretty much the same thing. But this is like a difference when we are seeing that our opponent has been playing really tightly.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking that it's going to be a lot better to call than go for a 3-bet. If an opponent plays really tightly, they are not going to fold to 3-bet that often, so I'm thinking that calling with ace-3 is going to be the best. And also against a guy that's really tight, when they are, generally, those guys that are really tight, when they are not hitting the flop, they are really easy to get out of the pot.
Yeah.
So I think like right now we have been discussing a lot about folds, and you said that you are probably calling too much, but I'm thinking pretty much the opposite in here.
Yeah.
That there are going to be, and I'm thinking that some of those hands are going to be fixed when you are playing less tables and you are being less hurried in your decisions. And Calleon, I think in general it's better to call with than 3-bet small in blind versus ace-x. And we just discussed about this, that when it was like just 5 minutes ago, on that we are going to have pretty much 3 distinct ranges, and it's going to even be profitable to 3-bet shove in general against a general opponent.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking right now that we could have a small break.
Yeah, yeah.
Small break right now, like I'm thinking about either 7 or 12 minutes. I'm thinking 7 minutes is probably going to be better to get something more to drink in here and have a small break, so xxIxx can relax for a bit and think about the situations. But this is I'm thinking this is the most important part of the coaching. Like, now we have been talking about pre-flop hands, and everything starts with the pre-flop, and these are going to be the most important decisions that you are making are the pre-flop decisions.
Yeah.
So we are going to be on a break. Let's get back to 5 to half, so 22:25 finish time.
Okay.